being a pro, you know the ins and outs of the game better than anyone. So, jobs are just waiting there for people who are ex-pros to step into. So, it's basically future proofing, like, for yourself as a career. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. Ultimately, if I'm going to interview you, there are different styles of interviewing people that don't want to be interviewed. So you can offer up, you know, uh, I feel like when I interview someone that's not wanting to be interviewed, and I can feel it, and I can feel that they just don't want to be there, and they're all locking up. Every time I ask them a question, I give them options at the end of the question to answer, rather than standing there and letting them try and find the words, or letting them try and figure out what they want to say, or if they don't want to say anything. Instead, just give them options. What was that last play like? I can't believe that happened. Were you thinking this, or were you thinking this? Or what was happening with your team communication going into that? Were they hyped, or were they, so if you're giving someone options, then they can pick one and the interview can go a bit smoother and you can just kind of keep things moving, chugging along. Whereas if you say, tell me about blah, and they go, and then they start freezing up, that's when interviews can go a bit south. So I like to kind of gauge how the interview is going to go from a certain person. If they're not media trained, or if they don't seem interested, it's better to just give them options to keep the interview chugging along. But yeah, it's always great when you interview someone that wants to be interviewed. And, I did the Clash of Clans World Championships in November last year, I think. And, in the final, the team that won, he snatched the microphone out of my hand and just started a chop. But by the way, never snatched the microphone out of the host's hand. That's when all hell breaks loose. But he started a chant with the audience and things like that. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. So, there are there are great moments to be had with players that want to be interviewed. And ultimately, I'll pick them out. Try and have a conversation with a lot of players before we start the interviews. Before we start the tournament. At the very beginning, they're lining up backstage before they do their Olympic walkouts, and I'll start talking to players, and I'll make a mental note of, okay, they'd be good for an interview. They seem chatty, they seem engaging, they seem hyped up, and you kind of pick out players that you think, oh, they're not really fast.
Yeah, it's like you got that little bit of finesse as a host where it's like, you're naturally picking people out, but also, like you said in the interview, you're making sure if it's somebody who's not super comfortable, there's an A or a B. Then rather than
Yeah.
come up with the answer on your own and just watching them freeze on a stage. Because like you said, when you got the microphone still at your hand, I guarantee there was someone in your ear say, get that microphone back, right?
Yeah. No one knows what's going on in here, but it's just chaos of like, why has he got a microphone? Get it back now. We need to close out the show. So yeah.
But it makes good moments.